So I made a video a few weeks ago about the stack method acquisition strategy. This is basically stacking financing where you can be zero out of pocket at the closing table. The way this works is you're stacking financing with a primary lender in first position and seller carryback in the second position, basically seller financing. So the way this works is with sellers who are looking for a large down payment. Now, when I explained in this video how this whole structure works, there was some confusion because I got a call from a guy who was ready to do a stack method, super excited about the whole thing. And one of his main questions was how to structure the down payment to the seller. Now, there's two down payments in a stack method, which is what makes it confusing sometimes to be able to structure with the seller, but also to be able to close it and get it funded. So I wanted to make this video to clarify what these two down payments are for. One, down payment to the seller, and two, a down payment from your transactional lender to close the deal. Okay, guys, so let's really get into it. Let's call this your deal structure. This is your deal structure line when you're structuring an offer to the seller. So this is your deal structure that you're going to offer. So we'll put offer over here too. This is your offer to the seller. So when you're negotiating, these are the terms you're trying to come up with as far as the split that they would like to see with a down payment and how much they're going to carry back. So you want to negotiate with this seller the down payment. So this is the first down payment we're talking about, the down payment to the seller that you're coming up with during this negotiation. So the down payment to the seller, and then how much they're going to do for the seller carryback. That's what SC stands for, okay? So if the purchase price on this property, let's just say, is a $1 million purchase price, okay? If you negotiate a down payment of 60%, so let's say 60%, that equals $600,000. Okay, so you got 600,000 cash down payment to that seller. Who wouldn't be happy about that, right? Because you're giving them 600,000 of that $1 million purchase price, they're going to carry back 40% or 400,000. Okay, so we got 600,000, 400,000, that total, that $1 million purchase price. So that is your deal structure offer. That, as you can clearly see, is the first down payment we're talking about, the down payment that is cash to the seller once it closes. Now, let's talk about the funding timeline. This close of escrow looks exactly the same because that's how you're structuring your offer. On that contract, you're letting them know you agree to the 600,000 and the 400,000 seller carry. Now we're talking about actually funding the deal and sending the funds into escrow. So if you've watched the other stack video, you recognize where these funds are actually coming from. The first funds comes from the DSCR lender. That DSCR lender, they're going to fund typically, let's say 70%, 700K. So they bring 700,000. They're going to require that you bring the other 300,000 or 30%. This is where I come in as the transactional lender. This is the second down payment. So you have down payment 1 and you have down payment 2 over here. That's why this gets confusing to most people, is because when you're trying to structure it versus when it's actually funding, that's two different down payments you're talking about. So when you're talking about a whole deal and I explain this to other people or they watch my videos, that's where they tend to get stuck. And that's why I wanted to make this video. And that down payment 2 is going to be, we just said 30% to cover the rest, which is 300,000. That also equals out to your $1 million purchase price, right? So you have 700,000 plus 300,000 equals $1 million. That's what the funding into escrow is going to look like. And then you have your 600,000 and your 400,000 that also equal your $1 million purchase price. That is your deal structure and your offer. You can see the deal structure offer, the two splits that equal $1 million, and you can see how it's going to fund into escrow where you have your two splits that also equal $1 million. 60-40 and 70-30. Now, where does this money go? So now we're going to talk about disbursement. So where do these funds go? So far, no cash was exchanged on this deal structure offer, right? But cash is now funded into escrow on this funding structure here. So 700,000 was sent into escrow and 300,000 was sent into escrow. So we now have what I like to call the escrow pot of gold. So you have $1 million in escrow. Second thing to note, we owe 600,000 as a down payment to the seller. So the seller gets 600,000 cash. Now, you owe the seller carry note. The note is not cash, right? So we're gonna write that mortgage note and deed of trust to that seller, and he's gonna take home that note, not the other cash. So where does the other cash go? Right now, so far, we've dispersed 600,000 cash, leaving 400,000 left. So now you owe 300,000, the other down payment. So the transactional lender funded in 300,000. So number 3 is the transactional lender gets 300,000. And that's also cash because that's the cash they put in for their down payment. So that down payment is now returned. So you have minus 600 minus 300. Now that leaves remaining amount of 100,000 cash to buyer. Now this is how we close deals: zero out of pocket or positive cash to the buyer. Now, what is that cash usually used for? You can use this 100,000 for things like closing costs, fees, reno money, right? You can do safety net, like a safety net budget, just in case things go wrong. So you can use that cash however you want. These closing costs and fees must get paid, right? That's part of that escrow process, so they can get paid. But once these are paid, the remaining amount goes in your pocket. And that's why we say net zero out of pocket, because when you close this deal, after fees are paid, you're either breaking even and you close that deal with zero out of pocket, or you're taking cash home out of that difference. So you had the seller get 600,000 cash, the transactional lender got his $300,000 back, but you would owe the transactional lender a fee, you would owe closing costs to the title company, and whatever you wanted to keep outside of that would be yours. That is yours to disperse. Those funds get dispersed from escrow, but really what we're talking about here is these two down payments. That's where everybody gets confused in this structure. So you wanted to send $600,000 to the seller at the close. That's cash. That is a down payment to the seller. This is how it got paid. This 700,000 here. Out of the 700,000, this 600,000 got paid. Now, down payment 2 came from the transactional lender. That's what we're talking about here. That 300 went into escrow, and guess what? It came right back out of escrow. So 600,000 was taken from here, right? Giving us a remaining 100,000. And that's where this 100,000 came from. So that's also accounted for. So hopefully that makes sense. This is the two different down payments where most people get stuck. So I hope that was able to clarify some of where the down payments go and how they're used, and also how they're negotiated. So when you're negotiating with the seller, you're letting them know what type of down payment, cash down payment, they're gonna receive at the closing. And then when you're actually funding the deal, you're asking your transactional lender to cover the second down payment. So those are the two down payments. That's the full breakdown, guys. As always, I hope it was super helpful. If it was helpful to you guys, go ahead and like and subscribe, and make sure you click the bell so that you know when the next video is coming out and I can help you acquire your next deal zero out of pocket.